All right, I am super excited to bring you this video. This video lesson comes from one of my Patreon students, Benjamin, who asked me, how can I connect with the audience when I'm jamming or improvising a solo? And the answer is awesome, and I want to show you how to do it. And this class is going to show you how to do it. We're going to try and keep it simple. We're going to make you able to stop noodling, connect with the music on your terms, connect the audience, and take them somewhere, and take them on a journey. And that's a very important, lesson to learn, or a skill to have, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And so, without further ado, let's get down to it. How do we connect with an audience? How do we move the audience with our guitar solos? Well, the answer lies in novels, in stories, in the form of plot elements. Now, it just so happens that the universe kind of provided this one, because I was doing some schoolwork with my kid, and we were on plot elements, and I was like, oh yeah, duh, like this is it right here. And so let's just talk about that. In a novel, there are 5 plot elements, and they are the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution. And most guitar soloing, like improvisation and even written ones, have at least the first 3, which is the exposition, the rising action, and the climax. Some guitar solos do have falling action and resolution, which we'll talk about, but we'll show you how to create a story in your soloing. And so let's talk about each piece, what it means, how to think about it so that you're in control, and you can play, some great solos that move people and connect with them. So let's look at the exposition. The exposition occurs at the beginning. It introduces the main character, setting, and basic situation needed to understand the story. When it comes to a story, the exposition is usually the first 1, 2, maybe 3 chapters. It gives us an idea of what we're dealing with. Now, if it's a cool story, or a simple story, the exposition could be simple, delicate. If it's a story about like war or something, it could come in, really fiercely. And the idea here is it carries over into our musical library, which is whatever you decide to do. And it could be fast, chaotic, could be simple. You have to commit to the idea and set the stage for everyone. All right, so what we're going to do here is I have a backing track, one of my favorite jams. It's G minor 7 to C9. It's known as You Enjoy Myself. You can jam over this for hours on end. And I'll play the backing track, and I'm going to show you. What we're going to use right now is just a G minor pentatonic. All right, and I'm going to come in with an exposition. Now, just to let you know, you could use whatever you have, whatever makes sense to you. But right now we're going to use the G minor pentatonic, and we're going to get a little bit more complex. And in the Patreon practice sessions, we are going to do a ton of stuff. So here we go. Let's listen for an exposition. I'm going to commit to whatever idea, flow, that kind of comes out of my fingers for the first few beats. And you'll see what I mean. Here we go. All right, you can see right there, gentle tiptoeing on the pentatonic. I decided to come in nice and stable and soft to kind of like grab the audience, let them know everything's going to be fine, set the setting, the tone, and everything. Now, that is an exposition. And the idea here, and we'll do more of these, is it's the start. It's what you choose to present and showcase, like, this is going to be my guitar solo. The next piece that we get into, and don't worry, we'll talk more about what I just talked about, is the rising action. Let's take a look at the rising action. The rising action is the main part of the story, which includes the problem, usually set up as 3 to 4 main events. The most important piece of this puzzle is defining what is the rising action for us musicians. And what it is pretty much exactly what just came on screen, but realizing that each chapter, each movement of rising action has to be different from each one, and kind of tie them together a little bit, and I'll explain a little further. When you're reading a novel, the first 2 or 3 chapters are the exposition, and then chapters 4 through 20 are the rising action. The rising action takes up the biggest part of the book, especially if it's a good book that grabs you and pulls you in, and we want that as a solo, as a soloist. So, chapter by chapter, rising action. That's the idea. And what it is just playing something different from your exposition first, and then feeling when you need to change things up, turning the page to the next chapter, and playing something different from your previous rising action. So here what I'm going to show you is an exposition and 2 rising actions. What you want to notice is that all 3 of these are different in terms of the rhythm I use, the patterns I use, the double stops, the holds, just different ideas. They're going to sound like one thing if you zoom out, but to us, the storytellers, we have 3 separate things. So I'm going to try and say it out loud as I do it. Probably fail miserably, but here we go. Here's the exposition. Rising action. Next rising. So you can see I had an exposition, and then I felt where I needed to start the next chapter of the rising action. What I did is I stuck with that G minor pentatonic, but I introduced some new things, some holds, some faster rhythms maybe. So holds and faster rhythms are opposite ends of the spectrum. You can do whatever you like here, and the idea is those holds and those fast rhythms were different from the exposition. I kind of played around a little bit, sticking with that G minor pentatonic, and then when I felt like I needed to, get that next chapter of rising action, well, then I did something even more different. I bent a little bit more. I kind of held some root notes. I did quicker runs in between the holds. And the idea here is you have to think about what is different from what I just did. All right? And this is how the rising action works. Now you could, there's my doorbell. So you can, where was I? Write a story as a guitar player that has exposition, 2 chapters of rising action into a climax. If you're in a jam band, you can do your exposition, 17 chapters of rising action. And so I'm going to show you, before we get to the climax part, I'm going to show you how you could, really, I don't want to say milk this for what it's worth, but really, bring that audience with you, connect with them when you're connecting with yourself, when you're connecting with the storyline. So what I'm going to do here is just open up, my fretboard. I have my Form 1 G minor pentatonic. I have the Form 2 will go in. The Form 4, which is up on the 10th fret. Now, if you don't know this stuff, brings up a very important point. If you don't know this stuff, you can do this with whatever you do know. If you just know a little piece of a pentatonic, if you just know chord tones, you can write your expositions and your rising action and your climaxes with whatever ingredients you know. And this is one of the first videos where I'm going to say, if you like this, if you dig this, join me on Patreon. The practice sessions are going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of them. We're going to be doing them in all different ways so that we can make this really easy for you and make you able to do it in the moment. Anyway, back to what I was saying. G minor pentatonic on the 10th fret, and then an octave higher, the Form 1. Now, all I'm going to do here is just build on the rising action. Now, rising action does not need to go up all the time. It could come down. You can be up here and then do something different here. It's all part of the storytelling as long as it's different from the previous chapter. So here we go. Exposition. rising action. So, sorry, my monitors got really quiet there. I don't know what happened, so I lost that tempo for a little bit. But nonetheless, you understand this. And so, rising action can go anywhere. All right, now let's talk about the climax. The climax of a solo is not what you think. It's not where the fireworks go off. It's not. The climax of the solo is when you pull the bottom out from under it, from a moment that, and it defines that it's the climax. And so I want to explain, like, I'm going to make a fool of myself here. Take the song Celebration Day by Led Zeppelin. I'm going to hum the solo because I never really learned it. But it starts off with the exposition. Rising action. Okay, so that is that a peak? Not really. It's a cool riff, and then it stops, and you go, oh, that was the climax right there, because nothing came after it. So the weight is not on you to build up these climaxes. You know, you can, and we'll talk about that definitely on the Patreon practice sessions. You know, how like Trey Anastasio, Jerry Garcia kind of do that stuff. But the point is you can call it whenever you want to call it. And as long as you stop, then that's the climax. And I want to talk about this. I don't know if I mentioned this, but you can just do, I think I did, you can do solos with just exposition, rising action, and climax. And that's what we'll do right now. I'm going to use these three pentatonics, and let's see if I can say it as I play it, which is very hard to do when I'm recording and trying not to screw up, but let's see if we can hear this all. Exposition. Rising action. Rising action. Screwed up there. I'm keeping that one in. I always screw up at the end. And you can see that the climax wasn't the climax until I stopped. All right, and you can do that any which way. I could have gone up here and just, just done this, and just made that the climax, because the whole band will take it down. And everybody goes, yeah. All right. So the idea here, exposition. You serve on a platter of setting. Rising action can be 2 to 20 to 30 chapters, however you want to do it, all right? And all that is required is doing something different than you did before. That's all it is. And then the climax is when you get to a part where you say, you know what, this is a good ending, this is a solid ending here, and then you go back to your groove, or you stop playing and the band realizes it and they kind of take it down. Now, again, we're getting crazy. I hope you're enjoying this. Let me know in the comments. Let's say you want to put in some falling action and some resolution. Okay. The falling action resolution of a book are like the last chapter, maybe the last 2 chapters. It's all rising action, climax, and then a little tiny bit. And so there are plenty of songs when you listen to them that you can listen to any of your favorite solos and kind of like start to hear this happening. Sometimes they put in the falling action. And you know, I'm going to reference Led Zeppelin again. When you're thinking about Dazed and Confused, you know, you have that part, the falling, the climax really is that part. That's the climax. And then the falling action. You know, that right there is the perfect example of it. Now, you can do this live. I feel like I ripped my guitar out of tune. I thought I heard that. So I'm going to tune my guitar really quickly. And then we're going to try and improvise something that has a little bit of a falling action into a resolution. So stay right there. Totally ripped it out of tune. All right. So let's put a little bit of falling action in this. I'm not going to get too complex. I'm just going to try and get through the parts. And let's see what we can do here. All right. I'm going to try and call them out as I do it. Might screw it up. Here we go. Exposition. Rising action. Rising action. All right, so you can see right there, got to a peak, and I said, okay, that was a peak right there. I'm going to give a quick falling action into a resolution. Now, a couple things here. You can do this with whatever you know, however you know how to solo. The ideas are about making things different. You can work it in different directions. If you're interested in this, if you like this stuff, makes sense to you, check out the Patreon practice sessions. I can't thank you enough for being here. I really do hope you enjoyed this because, you know, improvising a guitar solo that means something to you and the audience is hard unless you have a path, and this is it. So hope this helps. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.